everyone, and welcome back to episode 83 of the Savaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. Here for you, February 23rd, Wednesday night, 7:19 p.m. Jersey numbers, we got the Carson Kuhlman episode. Peter Solaric also once wore the number 83. Bruins legend, of course. Eric Gagne, the last Red Sox to wear it. Been a while since somebody's worn 83. Wes Walker and Deion Branch. And Deion Branch, you were wrong. You told me last week with Deion Branch, you're like, no, he's number 84. He is number 83.
There's 20 were 84.
Nope. You convinced me that he did, but he did not. And Matt Lacoste. There's a bunch of other random ones. I'm not going to run through the whole Patriots list. But
I was thinking of Ben Watson. That's what it was.
We might have mentioned that actually too. We might have made that correction about Ben Watson. Or I had mentioned that Ben Watson wears 84. I don't know. But we're not starting with football today. We're starting with hockey because football season is over. But we do have some football stuff that we'll get to later. And we're starting with the Bruins. As we normally do, we'll start with the game recaps. They lose 4-1 to the Islanders to get things started after our last episode, which, to be honest, wasn't great. But they lost 4-1 on the road, that new arena. And it wasn't good. Outside of the Taylor Hall goal, that wasn't even anything pretty to begin with. It wasn't good for the Bruins. He scores early, then they score 4 unanswered goals. J.G. Pageau on the power play, Bruins killer. Tough rebound from Olmark, not completely his fault, but one he'd like back. Shot through traffic on the Dobson goal, not really going to blame him for that one. 2 more tough rebounds. Olmark's got to be better on this one, I think, on the Barzell backdoor goal. And then Howless puck watching on the empty netter. Char with the puck. Brock Nelson has a nice, easy empty netter, and that's it. Bruins, any chance the Bruins had of winning. I hope for your sake, with your work schedule, you did not catch this game.
I did not.
Okay,
Heard it was horrible. Did not watch a second of it.
Well, you didn't miss much because it's one of those classic flat efforts. Sometimes they play down to teams. It just wasn't great. It really wasn't. But yeah, they have since put in the rearview mirror, and they won the next one in OT against Ottawa, which is, what you want to see. Want to see a response. You don't want to see a close game against Ottawa, especially when they're missing their 2 top scorers. Now Brady Tkachuk has inserted himself into the top scoring role. Drake Bathurst and Josh Norris both out, though. Jeremy Swayman, big game in what it's been a great stretch for him, dating back even to the Rangers game that he did lose, but they lost in the shootout.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Yeah, 29 saves and 31 shots. Forgot to mention in the first game, Olmark made 25 on 28. DeBrusk play some baseball for his trade value. Bats one in, crafty little goal. Caught the attention of some, maybe some people around the league. Hopefully, if the Bruins are going to move him, it would be kind of annoying at this point if they just didn't trade him, but it's certainly possible. Jack Stanika. What's that?
I said, it just wouldn't make sense. We talked about this before we went on earlier today. Like, I just don't see a possibility where he stays on this team because we've talked about it before. I'm sure we'll talk about it when we get to maybe some of the rumors that are coming up. Like, you don't have a lot that maybe you want to trade away or that you can trade away system-wise and obviously draft pick-wise. I mean, say we will about draft picks, but, like, I feel like DeBrusk is one of your more movable pieces. So, like, keeping him just wouldn't – with all the stuff that's happened to him, too, this season, obviously the trade rumors, the up and downs, like we know that DeBrusk has, like, it just – doesn't make sense for me to keep him, and it's like I texted you earlier. I don't see any possibility where he stays on this roster past the deadline.
Yeah, he's picking things up lately, on and off a little bit. He scored in his last 2 games, but it's hard to see, especially with the guy that's requested a trade, earning a contract in the summer too. Obviously, I don't think they would just not qualify him and let him go. But ideally, you want to get this done before the deadline. See what arises over the next month. We're less than a month away from the trade deadline, and make a move on Jake DeBrusk because I think if you want to contend, you might need to include him in a package, and you shouldn't hesitate to do so. We'll talk a little bit more about Jake DeBrusk and his role in the lineup going forward after we get through the game recaps. Excuse me, but the biggest thing on that DeBrusk goal to me was something I've been waiting to see from Jack Stanika pretty much his whole career so far. He's shown great flashes in the AHL, but it hasn't always translated to the NHL. Not putting up crazy numbers, not that he's expected to at this point in his career. Anything, he's struggling to find his footing. He's still a bit of a baby deer. I like to call him out there. He's a bit awkward at times. There's still some stuff he needs to work on. Could end up being a late bloomer. Excuse me. Itchy nose today. He did something that I want to see more from him. We saw a little bit, of him getting in the corners, I think, during the Rangers game, but he gets in the corner, makes a play, is aggressive on the forecheck, and it leads to a DeBrusk goal. This is what you like to see from Jack Studnicka. I'm not expecting him to be some forechecking maniac, but just a little more of the small things like that I think are going to be big in the evolution of his game beyond where it is. So that was good to see. Brandon Carlo scores a classic Carlo goal, just kind of like a messy one up front this time. Usually, he'll throw a back scratcher on net and it'll hit off 3 people or something and go in. This time, just a little net front rebound. Not even sure why he was down there to begin with, but he was, so it worked out. He cashed in. Good for a guy that's been struggling lately. Maybe a little confidence booster. Then David Pastrnak just has way too much space in overtime and buries it. I mean, you give David Pastrnak, especially with how he's been playing over the past month and a half or so, that much space, he's going to score 9 times out of 10. He ends it. Taylor Hall gets the assist. Hall and Pastrnak's chemistry has really been shining through lately. They showed in the Colorado game, too. I don't know if this was before or after any of the goals he scored in that game. He had 16 points his last 10 home games, and 12 of them were goals. Playing like a madman, especially at home. Yeah, you'll take it. Did you catch any of the Ottawa game?
I caught, what did I see? I was on and off. I caught Pasternak's goal at the end of it, which was obviously nice. But I saw DeBrusk. I can't remember how I missed Carlos or how I missed. Like I said, I was in and out. There might have been a Celtics game on during that time, too. I got to go back and look at what the Celtics schedule was. But like I said, I was flipping in and out of that game. But yeah, it was good to see Pastrnak obviously get on the board. I thought the broadcast brought up was he in some sort of goal drought or something? Was on like a 10-game scoreless streak or something, I thought they said. So they brought up a point that he had been kind of struggling. So obviously good to see.
Yeah, he had I don't know if it was 10 games, but he was in he had a little bit of a skid. Let me check his game logs real fast. But yeah, it's been awesome the past, month and a half, like I said, to see Pastrnak get back to form. He had a tough start to the season. Yeah, he was on a 5-game pointless drought, or 4-game pointless drought, coming into the Ottawa game. Then, of course, he exploded for 3 points in the Colorado game, which segues us perfectly into that one. I hope you caught some of this one.
This one I did, yep.
Okay. This is one I was not optimistic about, to be honest, without Brad Marchand, but the Bruins handily beat the best team in the league.
I know. Sorry to cut you off. I know what I was doing. Why I missed the Ottawa game. I know exactly what I was doing. I was wasting my time watching, which we'll get to later on, because I had some thoughts on it. But I wasted my time watching All-Star Weekend for the NBA, which was so much fun doing. I should have just stuck with the Bruins game.
Couldn't be me.
Made that mistake, yeah. Not great on my part.
Best win of the season for the Bruins. Huge statement from Jeremy Swayman. I was a little nervous going into this one. He had only beaten one winning team going into this game this season, which was awesome. Of course, a very impressive shutout of the Nashville Predators on the road. 42 saves, if I remember correctly. But this is a game you needed your stars to show up, and they did. David Pastrnak scores in the first period from Bergeron and McAvoy, just continuing that hot streak. Bergeron gets his own rebound after a crazy pass under the leg in a very tight window, like this big, of Samuel Girard. Gets it over to Bergeron. Bergeron eventually gets his own rebound off the initial chance. It beats Kemper, who's been white hot as of late. We talked about that last week previewing the game. A dumb penalty. I forget who this was on. I think it was on Hall. That I really think they could have went without calling. Gets Colorado back momentarily with a Nathan McKinnon power play goal. It's going to be hard to stop the Colorado Avalanche on the power play, and they proved that there. David Pastrnak, though, let me just look at the time here, scored a minute and 37 seconds later. So that works.
Good answer. Yep.
Goes back to your big time players showing up, top 6 scoring. Looking pretty good. Jake DeBrusk. I wasn't sure if this one went in. It kind of looked initially like it had like a little sliver of the puck on the red line, and
Mm-hmm.
of course there wasn't any contact after that initial chance. But that wasn't. Jake DeBrusk scores a bit of a squeaker. Him and Curtis Lazar have been forming some good chemistry lately, I think. So that's good. Seem like playing with each other. Well, wherever DeBrusk is playing in the lineup, he's been playing well. He's even seen some, penalty kill time here and there over the past month or so. Um, he'll move up in the lineup. We'll talk about that later. We'll see what he does there. McAvoy picks up another assist on this one. Charlie Coyle finishes the scoring with a power play goal in the third period. Jack Edwards reacted as if Pastrnak scored it because I think Pastrnak had the initial chance, but Coyle buries it, banks it off Kemper's back and in. It was so funny because he was like ready to give one of his like classic, like excited moment like outbursts, but Brick eventually mentioned that it was Coyle.
Well, he wanted that hat trick celebration, so for Pastrnak.
I mean he's used to scoring hat tricks. Sure he would have picked a funny hat like he did last time. I mean, what a win. Taylor Hall shows up, 3 assists. The guy I've been critical a little bit in the shooting department. I think he needs to shoot more. But when you're putting up 3 assists, it kind of fades into...
Negates that, yeah.
Yeah, negates that. That's a better way to say it. Yeah, huge statement, huge confidence booster, I imagine, for Jeremy Swayman. Not that he's lacking. This is a kid with charisma. We've seen his personality. Always see him smiling. I feel like you're good for once a game with Jeremy Swayman, seeing him smiling on the broadcast after he makes a save. We know his relationship with Olmark. The kid just loves life. And how can you not for this? Huge statement. It would have been cool to even see like a 1-goal win. They beat down the Colorado Avalanche, and it was just marvelous. It was marvelous. It really was.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm just overall like frustrated with the way they've played so far this season, but like a game like this, I mean, it kind of does frustrate you because you're like, why can't you have games like this? It seems like all the time. Like this is a game I think you and I both could probably agree with going into it. You didn't think the Bruins would blow out Colorado like this because we talked about it before. When we've done these previews, and you've mentioned it a bunch, of Colorado's been pretty much, I'll use the W word that you like to use, and sometimes you don't, as a wagon, it seems like all season. The fact that the Bruins came out and played pretty much, it seemed like solid throughout the game. Like there wasn't a ton of mistakes. They really didn't take their foot off the gas at any time. You mentioned it. The McKinnon goal goes in. You said, what, a minute and a half later, Pastrnak scores. So, like, they seem pretty much focused all game long. Everyone seemed to have, with maybe minus a couple of guys looking at the box sheet, seemed to have their handprints all over the game. I think the broadcast said that a couple times. So just a really good win. But like I said, it's like they have moments like this where you're like, oh, you play so well, you'd like to see it a little bit more consistently. And then there's other nights, like you said, the Islanders game, they struggle. But this obviously overall great win and hopefully something they can build off of moving forward.
Yeah, they just...
To do it without Marchand, too. Sorry again to cut you off. But like, do it without him.
Worries.
Like, it's just, it brings up the point, like, you have nights like this, like I said, where you have consistent effort from everybody. Like, it's just good to see.
Yeah. Shout out to Matt Doran in the chat. We were watching the game together, fired up. Yeah, you gotta stop with the playing down to teams they do every once in a while. I think they did a better job. The first time they played the Senators not too long ago, I think they played down to them. They won 2-0, but they played down to them. Played a lot better. Maybe a lot's too strong of a word, but played better in the second time against the Senators this past week. But I think the playing down to teams has to stop. They know that. Cassidy's talked about, wanting them to play like pricks. We haven't seen that come through like all the time yet, but I think that's got to resonate with the room, and maybe that is addressed with a depth move at the deadline. We don't know, but I think this team's capable of playing a bit more nasty. I think they're capable of playing better and playing, putting together more consistent efforts on a consistent basis. So we'll see if they do that. Game previews now. Seattle Kraken tomorrow night, late night game. So, adjust accordingly for anybody who didn't know it was late night game. First game for the Bruins at Climate Pledge Arena, home of the Seattle Kraken. So that's cool. Some history surrounding tomorrow night's game. Seattle still not having a great season, 16-33-4, 36 points, last in the Pacific Division. To start off this 6-game road trip, you did not remind me about putting the chat messages or the little messages up on the screen, so I'll do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot myself.
Bam.
There we go.
Yeah, 6-game road trip coming up. starting with the Seattle Kraken, gotta be honest, the Kraken are just a boring team this year. They don't have the pizzazz that the Vegas Golden Knights had that led them to the Stanley Cup final. Not even really close, not to dump on them, it's just true. This is what we kind of expect expansion teams to be like. Vegas
Hmm.
was most definitely an outlier. Um, Jakashan and Jesper Frodin were called up ahead of this game. Stanika was sent back down. Frodin was the placeholder for Brad Marchand, who was dealing with a personal family matter, so he wished the best to Marchand. He was with DeBrusque and Bergeron, so we know that DeBrusque is looking at some time of the top line right wing, more likely than not against the Seattle Kraken unless something changes. Um, Great opportunity to boost that trade value. This is something I saw Scott McLaughlin, my former boss, WEI. Shout out to Scott. Suggested during the Colorado game, and a lot of people, including myself, hopped on board with, and it's happening. I don't think Jake DeBrusk has played on the right wing since like 2020 or 2019, but
Hmm.
he's suffered some tough injuries while playing on the right wing that set him back earlier in his career. But it's been a long time since then. We know he's had success in the past on the right. I think he can do it. Um, he loves. I feel like a lot of the scoring chances he gets to begin with come from him somehow ending up on the right side of the ice and cutting towards the middle, making a move. We know his most iconic goal was him coming flying down the right side against Jake Gardner, and burying that iconic goal in 2018. I think he could be good here. Jesper Frodin filled in for Marchand. They just have him as insurance, I guess. And I imagine Jack Sean's in the same boat. Um, Hovakanainen did not skate today. I don't think he's going to play against Seattle at this point unless something changes before tomorrow's game. Probably hold him out until the San Jose game. I hope he's back in the lineup soon. Want to get him more seasoned and ready as a playoff option for the Bruins. What else do we have going to this one? Nothing really else. I mean, Jared McCann's leading them in scoring a measly 33 points. Not great from your leading scorer, but this is a team that's just struggled to score this year. Could get an infusion of talent after the college season with their second overall draft pick, Hingham Mass native Matty Beniers, if he were to decide to leave, which I think he probably will, and play for the Kraken right away. He'll definitely be on their team next year. They can get an infusion of talent, get him NHL, up to speed in the NHL before his first full season next fall. But this is a team that's just struggled to score. They've fallen into the expansion team category where it's going to be tough for them. You don't see teams like Vegas a lot, or pretty much at all. And yeah, they've fallen into that category. Philip Grubauer, that $6 million contract's looking tough on a bad team. He's 12, 22, and 4 with a 318 and an 887 one shutout. Chris Drieger and his $3 million, 4-8 0 with a 3.30 goals against and an 893. Really tough sledding for the Seattle Kraken. I anticipate the Bruins winning this one and getting the road trip off to a good start. San Jose up next, 22, 22 and 6, 50 points, 7th in the Pacific. We're going right up the Pacific. Tongue
Specifically, we're
twister.
going up the Pacific.
Um, yeah, tough one. But yeah, they're going up the standings from the bottom to the top, and that goes up next with the Sharks, who kind of looked like a playoff team for a little bit, but they're kind of tailing off. Timo Myers having a phenomenal season, leading them in scoring 23, 29, and 52 in 45 games. We know that like 5-6 point game he had probably about a month ago now. I'm just looking at the schedule to see Matt's question right now. It said they're going on a. I thought I saw somewhere someone said they're going on a Western road trip, but the road trip is not completely Western. So if that was the case, that was wrong. But just wanted to check that. I guess we could answer that question before we get into the Shark stuff. Toughest game of the road trip. The road trip includes the Kraken, the Sharks, the Kings, the Ducks, the Golden Knights, and the Blue Jackets. I would say the toughest opponent is the Golden Knights. They have Jack
Yeah,
Eichel back. It'll be the
probably
first time
agree. Yeah.
we face Jack Eichel in a long time. He's already got his first goal under his belt. I think he's got 3 points in like 4 games. Yeah, the Golden Knights are very good. They don't have to. It looks like of course they're missing Mark Stone, but they don't have to worry about potentially moving out some salary cap with Stone on long-term IR. They're pulling a Kucherov, like Tampa Bay did when they won the Cup. Yeah, I think it's the Vegas Golden Knights. I think we're both on agreement on that.
Yep. Just that, and then obviously the atmosphere playing in that barn. Like, it's always crazy. It's always packed. Like, it's got to be a tough atmosphere to go and try to win in.
Yeah, it's Vegas. But yeah, back to the Sharks. Aiden Hill, I think he's injured. I don't think he's on the COVID list. So Zach Sawchenko is backing up James Reimer. He is appeared in 2 games this year, hasn't got a decision, but in his 2 appearances, he's got a 1.47 goals against and 957 save percentage, so not too bad. I believe he's about 23, 24 years old, young goalie. Aiden Hill, presumably injured, just guessing off the top of my head, don't remember. 9-11-1 with a 2.78 goals against and a 901 save percentage, 1 shutout. James Reimer, 13-11-5 with a 2.91 goals against average and 912 save percentage, 1 shutout. James Reimer's honestly had a pretty good season overall. Tailed off a little bit over the past month, but had a really good start in like middle portion of the season. Now it's kind of tailing off as of late, which kind of describes the Sharks. They had a good start. They were in the mix. It was the least like explosive division in terms of points in the standings early on, but it's very tight now, and they're kind of falling out of the picture. But definitely not out of it with how tightly packed those top 7 teams are together. They're 1-5-4, pretty weird record in their last 10 games. They are picking up those loser points, so that's good for them. Very important. Just got Ryan Dzingel for free from the Leafs. Bad asset management from the Leafs, I thought at first, but I guess this was in the plans. As I forget who I saw the tweet from, but Kyle Dubas called Dzingel after the Nick Ritchie trade. Speaking of Nick Ritchie, former Bruin, he was traded along with a conditional pick to the Coyotes for Ilya Lyubushkin and Ryan Dzingel. Lyubushkin being the centerpiece of that trade, giving Toronto some defensive depth for cheap. The condition on the pick is really weird. It can either be a 2025 second, the first 2025 pick moved in the NHL so far, or a 2023 2023 third. So they have the pick of that. I mean, Arizona's rebuilding. I'd go for the pick in 2023 personally. You want picks as soon as possible. That's what we're here to talk about, though. Dubas called Dzingel when they acquired him and pretty much just told him to stay put because they were putting him on waivers and expecting him to be claimed. Purely a cap move for the Leafs. They get Nick Ritchie's contract out of here. Dzingel's contract is now property of the Sharks. He made his debut last night. He's a solid defense first forward at this point, more so known for his offense early in his career. His offense has kind of tailed off. Good defensive guy now. Defense first, kind of bottom 6 guy. Played on the second line for the Sharks last night, though. Eric Carlson's still out for them. He's out until mid-March. They're a solid team, despite being in 7th place. They're in a competitive division. They got some good forwards still. They're missing Eric Carlson, but it's not like completely crippling them, even though they've only won one of their last 10. I think they're a team that can still be in the mix for a playoff spot, give the Bruins a game maybe. We shall see, but I don't think this is just like an easy win for the Bruins. It might end up being, but I don't think it's just guaranteed to be that case. Next up are the Kings, 26-17 at 7, 59 points, 4th in the Pacific. Almost said specific again. Anze Kopitar, 47 points, 14 goals, 33 assists in 50 games. Jonathan Quick, still playing quite a bit. 13, 10, and 6, 2.61 and 9-11 and a 2 shutout stat line for him. Cal Peterson, 12, 7, and 1 with a 2.71, 898, and 1 shutout. Drew Doughty has returned to form for them this year. Contract looked a bit bad. By a bit bad, I mean really bad last year and like the past 2 years at $11 million. But now at nearly a point per game defenseman again. He's looking pretty good. He's been a huge piece for them this year as they fight for the playoffs. A team to watch the deadline. I think the Kings could be pretty active. I think they need some scoring help, and they've been rumored to be in on a couple left-handed defensemen. So we'll see what happens with them. That they're a team to monitor for me. But another team kind of like San Jose that won't like blow you away. I think they're a little more talented than San Jose, but can give you a game. So I don't think this is necessarily an easy W for the Bruins. And it's kind of the same thing with Anaheim. It's a very consistent trend for me in the Pacific with how I evaluate these teams. Anaheim, Same amount of points at 59, but fifth in the Pacific from a whatever tiebreaker. They're 25, 19, and 9. Troy Terry leads them in scoring 26 goals, 18 assists, 44 points, 49 games. Anthony Stolars is 8, 5, and 1, 2.73 and a 920. Pretty good for a backup, 2 shutouts. Almost a Jonathan Quick again. John Gibson, 16, 13, and 8 with a 2.77 and a 913 and a 1 shutout stat line. Yeah, same kind of deal. John Gibson's really struggled lately, so maybe the Bruins can pile on if he is in net. But yeah, this is another team I can see being pretty active at the deadline. They've got some defensemen potentially available in Hampus Lindholm and Josh Manson. Potentially Ricard Raquel is on the move. We'll see what happens with them. Ryan Getzlaf, maybe. I doubt it. But, if a team comes calling, they might be willing to give him up and give him a shot at the cup because there's no guarantee the Ducks make the playoffs. But that's going to be a near the deadline decision, I think, for sure. That is the week ahead for the Bruins to close out the road trip. Like we said, they have the Vegas Golden Knights on March 3rd, and then the Blue Jackets on March 5th. Can't believe we're already in March. Almost.
Flying by.
Yeah, pretty wild. But big road trip for the Bruins, some winnable games. Vegas will be tough, but not one where they have like a ton of just crap teams. Some teams that could give them games, but I think they can get off to a good start by beating the Kraken tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. But any overarching thoughts for you for the upcoming road trip?
No, I mean the one thing just going off of record wise, like to the naked eye, you sit there and you go, okay, well the games get like a little tougher opponent wise, but yeah, I feel like just to me you got to think of two, and that's why I didn't really say it when we were talking about it. I kind of just thought about it now, but like that Vegas game, obviously with the Bruins going out west, the road trip gets harder the more you're out there, and obviously the more you want to come home afterwards. So that's just my big thing to look at is if this Western, or well, like you said, it's not really Western teams, so that's this kind of Western trip. If that type of fatigue sets in at all, and then maybe you see a game where the Bruins slip up a little bit against an opponent maybe that they shouldn't.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it's kind of like an interesting stretch. Like I said, I think we're kind of in agreement. Like some teams that could sneak up on you, but definitely some beatable teams. And as the Bruins get Brad Marchand back, could be a huge boost. He's getting back from his suspension. His appeal was unsurprisingly denied. He'll be back against Seattle. Yeah, shocker. Other notes: Taylor Hall, like I clued out earlier, please shoot the puck more. I think he's definitely become a pass-first guy more so in this portion of his career, but the guy still passes up on shooting opportunities too much. He is pretty much alone in a chance in Colorado, against Colorado, not in Colorado. It looks back to pass to Pasternak with the defenseman behind him, and they get nothing out of the chance. That's just one example of many.
I saw a lot of people. You just said it, one included. I honestly didn't have too much of a problem with that because I thought that, at least to me, it seemed like Hall, I feel like, was trying to, may have known, obviously, the Pasternak was looking for a hat trick, so maybe in that case he was trying to get it to him. Yeah. But I get the frustration, just shoot the puck on that point. Like, at that point, we've talked about the Bruins before being too, not greedy with the puck, I'll just say too pass happy, for lack of a better term. But like I said, I saw a lot of people reacting to that, but I kind of understood a little bit where Hall was coming from. Like they wanted the hat trick for Pasternak, obviously. But again, I can see the frustration behind it. Yeah, but he's fully integrated with the Bruins. We talked about it before. Like they like to pass the puck way too much. Like that's kind of their staple. Like Hall is officially part of that now.
Yeah, he is, sadly. Charlie Coyle. Yeah, as frustrating as that is, I'm with you. Charlie Coyle, a guy I think deserves some praise. 4 points in his last 5 games. A guy that's struggled to be consistent this year. Struggled even at times in the past with the Bruins with consistency. He's been a good part of that third line, man. Trent Frederick isn't really putting up points in bunches, but he's much better, I think, in the defensive zone. I think he's just more noticeable on the forecheck, making chances happen. And that's another guy, like talking about Stanika. This is the next, evolution of Frederick's game, is becoming a more noticeable player because he's toned back on the antics. He was going at it. He was talking so much shit at one point in the Avalanche game where Curtis McDermott came out of his way to give him a bump and say, "What's up?" That's what I want to see from Trent Frederick. He's becoming a much more effective bottom six forward We saw it, start to get going before he got hurt. About a month and a half ago, probably now. I'm just throwing out time frames today. In the past, then he got hurt and kind of screwed things up. But he's picked up where he's left off. He's even put up some points here and there over the past couple weeks or so. I'm really liking Trent Frederick. I was kind of souring on him a little bit at different points in the past, but he's becoming a more noticeable player, and that's great. Love to see it. Our conversation shifts to what we think a fully healthy Bruins lineup should look like. We kind of got a glimpse at it today, and we're both in agreement. I'm just going to run through it. Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusque at this point because they want to keep Frederick, Coyle, and Smith together. Haula, Pasternak, the tongue twister line. As a second line, Frederick, Coyle, and Smith as the third line. And for me, you got to get to a point where you bench Nick Foligno. Bleed, Nosek, Lazard. Anton Bleed has just earned it more. Nick Foligno is not a guy that's putting up points. He's not hurting you like super badly, but when you got a guy in Bleed that is much more noticeable, you got to reward him for it. It gets to a point where the money shouldn't matter. I think that's why they haven't done anything with Foligno. Like, we pay this guy $3.8 million. It's a tough situation, but it's one I didn't expect to get this bad, but I wasn't too thrilled with the Foligno signing when they made it. I think they gave him a lot of money because they wanted to outbid Minnesota. Those are the two teams in at the end. It was the Bruins of Minnesota, and they did. And I think it's blowing up in their faces. He just really doesn't do much. He's a good locker room guy. I think there's still some, defense first forward ability there. That's not worth $3.8 million, and it's not worth a spot in the lineup every night. I talked about Derek Forbort in the past too. They gave him a seat for one night, then put him back in. You can do that with Nick Foligno every once in a while. Rotate Bleed and Foligno in and out of the lineup. Please. It's really like a complicated ask because they don't want to do it, but I really don't think it's that complicated when Bleed is a guy that gives you consistent effort and has been in the organization for a while. He's busted his ass for this opportunity. He's drafted in 2013. In June, it's going to be 9 full years in the organization for Anton Bleed. He's earned it. Give him more of a shot. Foligno doesn't need to be in the lineup every night. I'm sorry.
It's a move that doesn't really hurt you either because Bleed plays like a guy that knows what he is. He's a fourth line guy. And Foligno, it's not like Foligno's going out there and winning you games. So, you can, like you said, take a chance sitting him. It's not like he's going to, you're missing anything by not having him in the lineup that Bleed can't give you. Bleed could go out there and skate around like Foligno if he really wanted to for however many minutes they're giving Foligno, 15, we'll say, if that.
Something around that.
Yeah, it's a move that to be honest, when you did this, I didn't even see that you didn't even have Foligno. I glanced at this pretty quickly, and I'm like, that's pretty much I mainly focused more so on DeBrusque and Smith, trying to figure out if I wanted to flip flop them, but the consensus seems to be don't break up that third line because it's played so well together, which I agree with. Didn't even realize you didn't have Foligno in the lineup, so that's how much of an impact he's made on me, at least watching these games.
Yeah, it's really been a tough year. And it sucks because I saw Foligno in the season opener where he had an assist and his line looked pretty good. I don't remember the exact line. I was like, okay, we have something here maybe. And then since then, it's kind of been a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get, but at the same time, you kind of do know what you're going to get because I'm still kind of holding out hope that he's going to string together some good games and maybe something will happen. But what you see is what you get at this point with Nick Foligno, and you got to do what's best for your team. And Anton Bleed deserves a spot in the lineup, at least in a rotating in and out of the lineup basis with Foligno. On defense, put Grizzly and McAvoy back together, please. Riley and McAvoy have been fine, but in a fully healthy D-cord, Matt Grizzly, with how long he's been in the top 4, at this point, these past few years, he's not moving back to the third pairing most likely, unless you trade for a guy at the deadline and you feel like he's best suited for the third pairing. Grizzly and McAvoy are your top pairing. I think Urho Vakanainen is good enough to be in the lineup. I want to see him with Brandon Carlo to elevate Brandon Carlo because I think he can. Urho Vakanainen has looked very solid more often than not this year. I don't know if I'd consider him a late bloomer, but a little bit. He's having that kind of season that Zaborov's having, even though Zaborov was drafted 2 years before, so you could use the late bloomer term a little more easily for him. Vakanainen and Carlo is my second pair, then Derek Forbort and Mike Riley. We saw Mike Riley at points earlier in this season on the right side. He looked fine. He's a good enough skater and puck mover to the point where I think, a right side transition is pretty seamless for a guy like him. But it's also a situation where they could go Riley McAvoy, Grizzly Carlo, and we've seen Vakanainen on the right, and we can see Forbert and Vakanainen as the third pairing in that regard. Connor Clifton is kind of the revolving door type of guy on defense. I think you got to, find ways to keep Vakanainen in the mix. Jack and Sean, if he's up every once in a while, in for Connor Clifton, Derek Forbert every once in a while, and make it work. Because you need to establish a top six, whether you trade for a guy or not before the playoffs. You got plenty of time to do that, but doing it sooner rather than later is only going to help you. Then in net, it's Swayman and Omar. Easy. You have it listed as same. We're on the same boat. We're in the same boat here with the lineup. Any additional comments of how you feel on the back end?
Not really. I mean, there's not really any moves, like you said, unless you bring somebody in. Like, there's not a ton you can really do. Like, I'm curious if maybe you try back a nine with McAvoy at one point, or because obviously we know Grizzly and Carlo have had some success together over the years. So maybe you flip-flop that here and there. But other than that, like I said, my biggest thing was trying to figure out if you – because I'm a little weary of playing DeBrusk on his offside. Like, he's struggled, like you mentioned. He's been hurt at times doing that. So that's kind of my biggest thing. But then again, like, it all comes back to Smith really didn't do anything on the top line with Bergeron and Marchand when he was up there. Like, there's really nobody else you could put up there. Like, I mean, if Steen was here, I would consider putting him up there. But they don't obviously – in Providence right now. So that was my biggest thing. Like, what do you do with the first-line right winger? And then, like I said, defense, you're not handcuffed, but you at the same time you kind of are because you've tried I feel like all these pairings before, and I feel like you're still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
I miss Oscar Steen. He's a guy I would love on the top line to get an audition if he gets called back up. Yeah, I mean, Craig Smith, to your point too, I think it looked pretty good at first on the top line, then it kind of tailed off. And, Craig Smith just had a tough year. He's a terrible puck luck. I don't mean to harp on the guy, but he doesn't have any hands.
Like, he's not a top line player. He's a third line winger. Like, I feel like that's what he is. Like,
I feel like he's been a turnover machine with the puck on his stick in the neutral zone, especially this year. The guy's hands are just gone most of the time when he has the puck. He's just not been good with the puck on his stick. He's had a tough offensive year, and if it works on the third line, that's fine. He's a guy making like third liner money. That's kind of what you got him for the middle six. So it works out. Next up in Bruins news, they made their first trade.
Hooray!
I just put the
nothing too crazy.
There we go. Thought this little thing disappeared. They acquired the rights to Michael Callahan, who my brother actually played against growing up. He's from Franklin, Mass. He's a left shot defenseman for Providence College, top pairing defenseman, 3-year captain. He's a pretty good player. He's a bigger guy in terms of his frame. I think he's about 6'2" when I checked earlier today. Physical defenseman, more of a stay-at-home shutdown guy than an offensive guy. And with guys like Vakanainen and Zaboral graduating to NHL roles, they acquired J.D. Greenway earlier in the season from the Toronto Maple Leafs, signed him. He's in the AHL, left shot defenseman, giant. Michael Callahan is another guy. They probably knew talking to Arizona, or Arizona maybe put this guy's name out there, that maybe Callahan doesn't want to sign with the Coyotes once he's done at Providence College. So they shopped around his rights and they found a taker in the Bruins. Could be the case. Just honestly speculating. As I look up Callahan here, he is 6'2", 196. So pretty big dude. But yeah, he's a physical left shot defenseman, 3-year captain. So he's got a lot of respect, it seems, in Providence, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in the Bruins system in the future. Traded for a 2024 7th round pick. So Arizona adds yet another pick to their future. 142nd overall pick in 2018. The Coyotes have a weird history with college defensemen and not wanting to play for them. Connor Clifton was one. He ended up with the Providence Bruins and eventually with the Bruins after he earned an NHL deal from his AHL deal. Michael Caro from BC, I don't think is going to sign with the Arizona Coyotes. They drafted him now at Michigan Tech. Michael Callahan's next. pretty weird. Not sure what's going on with maybe something behind the scenes with the Coyotes. I don't know. We know they're a pretty dumb organization, so
Yeah, well,
I'm not going to put it past them. Teammate of Riley Duran, 2020 sixth round pick of the Bruins, so maybe they'll be teammates on the actual Bruins someday, beyond Providence. And yeah, cool. I like the depth signing. It's nice and cheap. And as to the pipeline, can't really hate it. Good player, good local guy. Sweeney loves his local guys, loves his NCAA guys. So I'm sure he was thrilled about this. Other trade options, as you'll see on the screen. I've been thinking a lot, talking with a coworker as well, about the Winnipeg Jets becoming a trade partner for the Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks. Four guys or five guys I like them to be in the mix on in Winnipeg are Paul Stastny, Andrew Kopp, Brendan Dillon, Nate Schmidt, and Dylan DeMello. Someone in the Athletic wrote about how it might have been Murat Atesh, who's their Winnipeg guy, but I don't remember. It might have been one of their NHL guys as a whole. They have a few of them there. They wrote about Winnipeg. They're cap strapped, and they're going to have to move one of these defensemen. They all make like $3.2 million or more, I think. Dylan is a right shot defenseman, so I don't know if they'll add another fairly expensive right shot defenseman on top of McAvoy and Carlos. So I'm not holding my breath on DeMello. It's Nate Schmidt or Brendan Dillon for me, but Nate Schmidt's 4 years left at just under $6 million. I don't love that. I like Brendan Dillon's 3 years left at 3.8 or 3.9, I think it is. Much more. I really like Brendan Dillon mainly towards the end of his Sharks career with the Capitals, and even with the Jets this year, even though the Jets have had a tough season. Give me Paul Stastny or Andrew Kopp and Brendan Dillon, no problem. I think this is probably a trade if you get a combination of those three guys, a forward and a defenseman, ideally being Dillon. Probably cost you something like 2 second-round picks. Maybe you throw in Zach Senyshyn, a guy who's requested a trade, as an additional piece to give them someone that can contribute at the NHL level if they feel he's suited to do so. Ideally, you go for Kopp and Dillon, but if you get Paul Stastny, let him go in the summer and try to upgrade on the free agent market, maybe with a guy like Ryan Strome, someone else that hits the market at center. Cool with me, but I like Paul Stastny. I think he's older, but he's still got some ability. Been around for quite a bit of time. Andrew Kopp can play the center and the wing, so can Stastny. I really like Andrew Kopp. I think he's gotten a lot better over the past 2 seasons. Still pretty young, but yeah, I like that from the Winnipeg Jets. And I also like if they're looking to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, Dominic Kubalik and Calvin DeHaan in Chicago. They had scouts at, I think it was a Chicago-Montreal game, maybe, recently. Scout presence is pretty routine, but I think Kubalik is a guy that could target in a DeBrusk swap, and Calvin DeHaan is a good shot-blocking, stay-at-home defenseman, has played a lot of the top pairing for Chicago that they could target as well. I'd be very cool with Calvin DeHaan, be very cool with Dominic Kubalik. This is a package with DeBrusk and more being sent to them. Not too much more probably, but maybe a piece or two, a couple 2 birds 1 stone trade packages to consider that I think could become realistic possibilities for the Bruins down the road. I know we've watched Brendan Dillon over the past few years, so that might be a guy you're pretty familiar with. Who sticks out to you out of those names?
Just going off of names alone, like Stastny and Dillon are the two, like you just mentioned, Dillon. Excuse me, those are the two I recognize the most out of anybody. I'm cool with your idea because like I said, we've talked about this before. Where we both think it's a bevy of needs for the Bruins. I think I just mentioned it. Obviously, now you kind of need a first line winger if you want to move some guys around. Obviously, second line center is still kind of a top priority. I think we need defensive help as well. So the 2 seconds and what'd you say, Senyshyn? For Dillon and Stastny, I'd be down for that in a heartbeat to do. Whatever gets you the most help. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get to, if we're briefly going to touch on it. There's a much cheaper option that's come out that we've discussed today about going back to a team you just traded with Arizona and asking for a former Bruin winger that I hated the idea of at the first when my buddy I work with, Colby, brought it up to me. But the more I hear about it, the more I think about it, I'd call up Arizona to see what you can maybe get for Phil Kessel if it's as dirt cheap as it seems to be. Because that obviously kills that top winger need. I think you put him with Pasternak or with Bergeron and Marchand, and that would make the most sense to me. But I don't know. It all comes back to me is just what the Bruins are going to be willing to give up, what they can give up, because we talked about it off air before. Like, do you really want to trade away a lot of the farm system, I guess, for lack of a better term, to go out and make another run, or do you want to kind of try to trade draft picks to? I don't know. It's a weird spot from the beginning. I just don't know how much the Bruins really have to give up that's enticing to anybody, or what they're really willing to give up to begin with.
Yeah, Phil Kessel's interesting too. His name's been thrown around a little bit. I don't know how likely it is. It's been a long time since Phil Kessel was a Bruin. If he would want to come back here, um, but I mean, it's almost a foregone conclusion that they're going to move him.
Mm-hmm.
We know, if you're looking into the news enough, that they have been willing to take a third round pick for Kessel at 50% retained of his $6.8 million, and teams have said no. So you're getting him for less than that, with that information being public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
He's got over 30 points in the season. His goal scoring's gone down. He's only got 6 goals, but it's a guy who's a legit passer. He's had a lot of playoff success. A guy that still can score as well. Yeah, he's already had salary retained
Mm-hmm.
from the Penguins, and modified no trade clause and no move. So yeah, that's that. So let me just check the salary retention here. Yeah, so his salary, yeah, he had it actually um retained all the way back from his time with the Leafs. That first trade that sent him to the Penguins, and then the Penguins traded him to the Coyotes. So I just wanted to double check that. I think there's a real scenario where, I think for the Bruins, if they were to do all these 3 moves, they'd have to move one of their recent contracts they signed. And in this case, if they're addressing all 3 positions, it'd be Eric Howla.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, if you need to, move Howla as the odd man out with these 3 trades, you can throw Howla in a late round pick to Arizona. Um, I think there's a real situation where you could get DeBrusk, Stastny, and Dylan, or Kessel, Stastny, and Dylan, or Kessel, Kubalik, and Dahan. All
Mm-hmm.
3 of them. I really do think it's possible if the Bruins can make it work with the cap. If they want to address all 3 needs and really go all in, I don't think any of these moves are going to break the bank. I don't think you'll have to give up a first round pick in any of these moves. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, it's for Stastny and Dylan because of Dylan's term. He's pretty good. He could play with Charlie McAvoy plus Stastny. Maybe they want a first instead of 2 seconds and something else, but I kind of doubt it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's possible because, the 2 valuable assets. Dylan's got term. Stastny could be their second line center. They could try and sell that, but I don't know if that would work. I think there's a realistic situation where they address a winger, a center, and a defenseman, and with this group of players. Is it going to happen? Almost undoubtedly not.
Probably
But
not.
just galaxy brain thinking a little bit, getting the wheels turning. I think it's possible. I would really love if they at least, at the bare minimum, explored a center and a defenseman in either of these scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Then Phil Kessel, I mean, if he was more pricey, I don't think you're considering it. But
Yeah,
if
no
you can
chance.
get him at 50% retained for like a 4th round pick, I
I
mean,
think it's dumb not to.
it'd be crazy not to.
Yeah.
Um, but
Like you
he's
said
got
too,
he's
if all
got
the
say if he doesn't want to go back to Boston, it's squashed. So
true. I was just gonna say, like you mentioned, I mean, the report I saw was they called Pittsburgh up, and Pittsburgh told me you're not getting a second round pick, no chance. And then you just said it doesn't seem like a third round pick. Like if his price tag keeps dropping too, and like you said, you might have to give up a fourth or even a fifth if it drops that low. I don't know. But if more reports come out that teams aren't interested in him, and you can get him at an absolute bargain, like you'd be stupid not to. Like,
yeah, and I mean he hasn't had a real opportunity to showcase it over the past few years. Because
mm-hmm.
the Coyotes have made the playoffs, but they're not a team that walks in and has success in the playoffs. But he's
True.
a legit playoff performer. I'm pulling up the stats here just to
It's
back
like
me up.
72 points in 80 games, isn't it, or something ridiculous?
He's got 81 points, 34 goals in 96 games. Um, his last, somewhat lengthy run, he had 9 points in 12 games with the Penguins. Had 23 and 25 one year, 22 and 24 one year. Had 11 and 11 in 08-09 with the Bruins. His most recent run, 4 points in 9 games with Arizona. Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that can get it done. Not, no saying that'll happen if he goes to a playoff team this year, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting to think about. They're already talking to the Coyotes with this Callahan deal. Maybe they do it again.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly possible. But we'll have to wait and see. I think, when the Bruins make deals, it's going to be the week or two leading up to the deadline, not anytime
True.
soon.
Yep.
Um, but you clue that, you know, the Kessel move is another move outside of the first moves I brought up. But
Mm-hmm.
there's another move that people are talking about that could be a reunion that I don't think will happen, but it
I
could.
thought about this when I saw this in the outline. I'm like, I wonder if they'd kick the tires on this one, but I'm not 100% sure.
Pierre LeBrun is reporting that teams are calling the Islanders and they're saying to Lou Lamoriello, "Hey, keep us in mind if you decide to do something with Zdeno Chara." Um, of course, there's gonna be reunion talks with the Bruins from
Mm-hmm.
fans, and if he does, then there's already interest in Chara despite his age, 44. The fact that he slowed down a bit, but he's still a major leader and a very physical presence that could help a contender on the third pairing for sure. Um, to me, this screams Colorado. They do
Mm-hmm.
try and do exactly what they did with Ray Bork. They try and send Chara off with a cup. They could very well do so. I think they could afford to, have Chara as an insurance option instead of Jack Johnson or Curtis McDermott. They lose Bowen Byram potentially for the rest of the season, dealing with his concussion issues he's dealing with. Sadly, um, it's pretty crazy how Chara is set to break the all-time defenseman game played record at 44 when Chris Chelios set the record at 48.
That is insane. Holy crap.
Chris Chelios only playing 7 games in his final season, but 7 games added to the record. Pretty amazing. To me, this just screams Colorado, but I would not be surprised if Don Sweeney wanted to bring him back for the playoffs. Not a guy that's going to be guaranteed to be in the lineup, but there's no doubt that everybody would be thrilled to have Zdeno Chara back.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty weird comment that Ty Anderson brought up from Don Moore last night. How Don Moore was kind of thrown off when he got here by Zdeno Chara's commitment to his craft. Um, but I forget the wording Ty used in the tweet that Dominic Moore used, but yeah, it kind of went around Twitter a little bit, and I thought it was interesting. Let me try and find it real fast. Kind of weird comment by Dominic Moore, the Islanders Kraken broadcast talking. Chara says Chara rubbed him the wrong way when he first came to Boston because Chara was so dedicated to his craft and winning. Weird choice of wording. Maybe he didn't
Yeah.
mean it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just kind of was thrown off, like I said. Maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what he meant. But Chara could, it could happen, but I don't see it happening. Um, about Phil Kessel too, he's gonna have to buy Anton Bleed a Rolex or something if he comes back to get
You
81,
get his number back?
unless he wears number 26. Previously worn by Par Lundholm and Colby Cave. Rest in peace to Colby Cave.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Knuble, one of my first favorite Bruins. He wore 26 at the University of Minnesota, so maybe he'd like 26. Maybe he'd want a whole different number. Also, number of legend Miroslav Shatan, a playoff beast for the Bruins in the past. Maybe Phil Kessel could be the next one. But I think that wraps it up for Bruins. Anything else from you?
No, just looking forward to see how they do on this lengthy road trip, see if they can win a couple games and continue to play well. And then maybe we'll have some more legitimate, not that they're not legitimate buyers going closer to getting closer to the deadline, but really put the pedal to the metal when it comes to trying to figure out a deal to improve this team.
Yep. I hope at this point there's still people out there talking about oh, should they stay pat? And is this team really built for it? What kind of message are you sending to Patrice Bergeron and potentially his
Yeah,
last
it's
season
like
if you
you
don't
have to
go
be a
for it?
buyer because of that.
You have to. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
This is potentially your last year with him. Go for it. Just please go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe within reason though. Maybe you don't have to, be clamoring to give up a first round pick. Maybe you
Yeah,
don't
do I
have to
was
with
gonna
the
say
moves I
do it, but do
suggest.
it smart.
Do it smart. I think we're in the same boat. But that's it for
Mm-hmm.
Bruins. That's it for hockey. We'll see how the Bruins do in their upcoming road trip, 6 games. We do have some football talk in the off season. primarily with J.C. Jackson, the big financial matter the Patriots have to attend to. The latest on him, some interesting comments this week. I will segue this to you to get us started on that.
Yeah, some of this caught me by surprise, but then going back, obviously, following what happened with Stephon Gilmore last year, with Malcolm Butler a couple years back, and obviously the history the Patriots have had. I was listening to Flugger Mass, and they went even further back with guys like Aqib Talib, Darrelle Revis, stuff like that. Like the problem that the Patriots have had when it comes to retaining their top corners. Just the problem that's reared its ugly head the last 5 to 10 seasons. It's happening again with J.C. Jackson. Some interesting comments that he had that I actually got sent yesterday by a buddy of mine, again, Colby, who I talked about in the hockey section. Show me J.C. Jackson apparently was talking to Phil Perry about, his future with the Patriots, stuff like that. Was asked about a potential contract extension. Had some interesting comments. The first one was Jackson was asked about not resuming contract talks since the season ended, or he was asked about, if the Patriots had reached out to him. Jackson went on to say, quote, "I guess they feel like they don't need me. I guess I can't be important to them. I know I am, but they're not showing me." And then obviously Jackson, like I said, was asked about a potential extension during the season if the Patriots had any talks with him. He went on to say, quote, "It was all positive things. I wanted to focus on ball at the time. I wanted to finish the season the right way. I didn't really come to them on it. I love the game. If they tag me, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna go out there and play. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not taking it day to day. Excuse me. I'm taking it day to day. But it's time for me to get paid. It's time for Mr. Interception to get paid." Which, again, like we've talked about this before, the Mr. INT nickname, like you're not Darrelle Revis. Like don't be coining nicknames when you don't earn them. But we've talked about this before. Like I have mixed opinions on J.C. Jackson, even with this. Like I see some of these comments, like I said, where it's time for Mr. INT to get paid. Like he's kind of right. I mean, I kind of want to hold out hope that he's going to not have the whole problem that Stephon Gilmore had a couple years ago, where he's sitting out because he says that if they franchise tag me, I'm going to go out there and play on the tag. That's fine with me. It seems like. But then again, like you don't want this rearing its ugly head where maybe the Patriots don't franchise tag him. These talks stall out. They come to an agreement late in the offseason, or they don't sign him and he goes somewhere else. Like it's a weird spot. Like you and I, would we say J.C. Jackson's a top caliber corner, but like because he obviously, and he said this too, there's reports out that he wants to get paid like a top 5 corner. If you look at those, obviously those numbers, Jalen Ramsey, $5 and $100 million, Marlon Humphrey, $5 and $97.5, Tre'Davious White, $4 and $69, Darius Slay, who's the 4th highest corner, is $3 and $50.1 million, and then Byron Jones with the Dolphins is $5 and $82.5 million. Seems to me Jackson wants to be up there, and I think Pro Football Focus had it. His market value this offseason is somewhere between 4 years and either between 72 to 80 million. So that would put him up there with, the top 5 corners in the league. But see, I don't see him as, I see him more towards the bottom of that. Like, I still think he's a solid corner, but he's a solid number 2 on a team. Like, he's not, we've seen it before. Like, he'll feast on crappy teams, but then he'll go out and get burned by Stephon Diggs and the likes of those guys time and time again. So, to some degree, yes, like, obviously you've earned your payday, like, go out and get it. But then again, like, you kind of, I don't know, it's a weird spot for me. Because, again, it's like the Patriots need him, too. Like, if you look at their depth chart, if he walks, like, we've talked about it before. Do you trust Jalen Mills to take over as the number one? I'm not saying the Patriots aren't going to go out and address the corner position if Jackson leaves. But, like, right now, if he does, you said it perfectly. They're screwed. Right now, it's Jalen Mills, Jonathan Jones coming back off of injury, Miles Bryant and Jamal Williams, who both, Williams more so than Bryant sucked at times last year. Bryant had some good moments, but he was torched more so than not. And Sean Wade, who we don't even know if he exists or not. Like he's their Romeo Langford pretty much. Like they got him and he played maybe 1 or 2 games all last season. He was special teams for the most part.
Out there.
So yeah, it's a weird spot for the Patriots to be in. Like, do you want to shell out a ton of money for this guy when you could maybe let him walk and go sign some other pieces, go back to the Patriots way of doing things where you bring in, veteran guys to fill roles? Or do you want to shell out money for mainly J.C. Jackson and then try to, put the pieces of the puzzle together after that? Like, it's a weird spot to be in for him.
Yeah, Jeff Howe, the Athletic, mentioned how the Patriots typically wait till after the Combine, which is March 1st to the 7th this year, to lay the groundwork for in-house negotiations. So maybe Jackson's comments were a little bit premature and a bit immature to me. Like, to be honest, I stand by what I've been saying, on and off, because we don't always talk about it on the show. I think they're going to tag him, and I think they should, because I think that tag is right around where he's worth, maybe a little less, I'd say, and make him earn it. Like you're Mr. INT, all right, earn it. You're the number
Yeah.
one corner all year. Do it. Because I'm not giving him number one corner money without a full season of him as a number one corner under his belt.
Exactly.
At least long term, because of course they would be giving him that on the franchise tag. You want to be paid like Jalen Ramsey and make 20 sheets? Earn it. That's really it for me. I mean, just yeah, that's that's it. Just you want the money long term, earn it. It's been tough for you at times. You got to be honest about that with yourself, and he knows what the culture's like with the Patriots. Belichick's not gonna just fall into his hands. Be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'll
Here
pay
you
you.
go.
I'll
Yep.
pay you $20 million. I'll pay you 18, whatever you want. It's just not gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen. Um,
No.
you got to be. They're just kind of dumb comments, and they don't really like phase me. Like, oh no, I'm worried. Like,
Mm-hmm.
come on, dude. Like, you got to kind of grow up a little bit here. You got to earn your way, and yeah, just shut up. Honestly, like, just shut up and earn it. Um,
Yeah.
Other notes: the Bill Belichick Foundation is distributing $385,000 in scholarships and grants to provide athletic experiences and opportunities to underprivileged youth in sports programs in need. So shout out to Bill Belichick and the Belichick Foundation there. Very
Mm-hmm.
cool. Other football news: the biggest football news with Aaron Rodgers, loving the attention as usual. Did Aaron Rodgers hint at retirement on Instagram or trying to ensure he's in the good graces? I think it's come out now that he was expressing gratitude, teammates, fans, however you want to perceive it, ownership. I think he's trying to ensure that he's in the good graces, because whatever reasons he doesn't want to make himself look like a bad guy, wants to ensure he's getting paid by the Packers. Maybe had a change of heart, wants to stay here. He's got that out potentially in his contract.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think there's any chance of retirement. Like he went out in a bad way in the playoffs. He won MVP. Like he doesn't want to go out losing like a sack of dog shit in the playoffs. And Gutenkirst wants to extend Devonte Adams. So you know, why wouldn't he want to stick around with Devonte Adams if they extend him? That's just how I see the whole situation. What about you? Do you
I
think he's
just
going to retire?
I think it's either go somewhere else or retirement. I saw bits and pieces of the Instagram post, but as soon as I saw how long it was, I'm like, I'm not reading this pretentious d bags thing. Like, I don't care. Like you said, it's another case of let's look at me. It's all about me. But I've been saying, like you mentioned how he went out in the playoffs. I think that was it for him in Green Bay because of how it went down. I think that he finally realized that I'm done with this place. Like, I'm gonna go somewhere else. The Devonte Adams thing interests me because obviously they talked about they want to stick together and play together. So be interesting to see if Green Bay can bring him back. Maybe we've talked about this before. Maybe he holds out and tries force his way out and go wherever Rodgers ends up. But I don't care what he posts. I don't care how cryptic it is. I don't see him uh, being in a Green Bay Packers uniform next season.
Yeah, the thing is though, like if he comes to the AFC, he's got to be thinking like, do I want to deal with Herbert, Mahomes, Mac
That's a
Jones,
fair point. It's going to be tougher to go
Baltimore?
through.
Like
Yeah,
he gets to play the Bears and the Lions all the time. Like
yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I think he's kind of realized that this might be his best shot at winning, especially if Devonte Adams stays. Um,
Hmm.
losing Nathaniel Hackett, I don't know how much that is on his mind, but they've lost, I think, a couple other pieces to their coaching staff as well, maybe just one additional. But I don't know. Right now, I'm in the Packers, keeping Aaron Rodgers camp. I don't think he's retiring this year. Um,
Hmm.
but I understand at first why people might have thought this was a farewell. I saw it at first before reading the whole thing and thought it was a farewell or you know, at least a farewell to the Packers.
Hmm.
But I'm kind of in the camp that they're going to try and keep both of them and perhaps succeed. But we'll see. This is now going to be a huge storyline, which he loves. He's
Hmm.
pretentious. He's a d bag.
Probably why he
This is
did it. Yep.
Yep. This is not news about Aaron Rodgers. We don't like him. Um, here on the podcast, but that wraps it up for some quick football points. Onto the NBA. From what I heard, was not a fun All Star weekend. I think the dunk contest sounds to me like it's gone downhill since the epic dunk contest in 2016.
Supposed to
Um,
be dead after Saturday night. It
yeah,
really is. Like,
I did not see one good thing about it.
No, I mean, like I said, I stupidly watched it. I mean, thankfully the Bruins game, I was able to catch some of the Bruins game like we talked about, but then obviously had to watch. There was nothing else on, so I'm like, I'll watch the dunk contest because there's like you mentioned, there has been some really good moments. Obviously, you think back of the 2016 with Levine and Aaron Gordon. You think back of 2020. I mean, Aaron Gordon getting robbed by Derek Jones. That was a good dunk contest. I had to go back and look at who won the 2021 dunk contest because I mean, obviously with the COVID stuff, it was a little weird how they did it with only 3 contestants. Apparently, Anthony Simmons won it from Portland last year. Don't remember any dunks from that dunk contest. This year's dunk contest, the same thing. You remember more so the amount of misses they had, more so than the dunks. I mean, again, it's the same stuff with the dunk contest every year. Like it's a bunch of nobodies. Like this year, you had Obi Toppin, who came in second last year. He ends up winning it. He pretty much did a layup to win it. He banked the ball off the backboard and then dunked it. You had Juan Toscano Anderson, who, if you know who
Who?
that is, exactly. If you're not a Warriors fan and like you know who that guy is, congratulations to you,
Sounds like a
Jalen Green.
baseball pitcher.
Yeah, I mean he didn't do anything really spectacular. I think the coolest thing about him is he came out because he's I think he's Mexican, so he came out in like a Mexican version of like the Warriors, so it had like the Mexican flag and stuff in his uniform and his shoes. That was the coolest thing he had all night. Jalen Green came out, the Houston's rookie. He came out with a stupid NFT chain of him dunking and then proceeded to miss like 9 straight dunks. So that was good for him. You get what you deserve in that case. And then Cole Anthony, his highlight of the night is he tried to dunk in Timberland boots, which again failed at because like that's not something you dunk
That's
in.
like, I mean,
Like
really, that's just like dumb. Like you could hurt
yeah,
yourself doing that.
well, that's what a bunch of the broadcasters were like. Just make sure you don't like, because apparently that's something like I obviously don't play at a lot of like rec league game, not rec league games, but like park games. As they said, a lot of the times like you'll see guys dunking in Timberlands in park games, like around cities. So I mean, maybe that's what Cole Anthony was trying to go after. But again, they were like, make sure you don't like twist an ankle doing that. But it was horrible. I mean, I stupidly watched the whole thing, thinking maybe something would happen. It was Stephen A. Smith said it was the worst dunk contest in NBA history. I think he was right on like perfect analogy or perfect just summing up of the dunk contest was horrible. One of the stats I saw, like I was trying to go through just to try to figure out how bad it actually was. This is from NBA Buzz on Twitter. Dunkers in the first round of the dunk contest went 7 for 25. So like I said, they missed more than they made. And then Jalen Green, like I said, he went 1 for 9 on his first dunk attempt. I think his first dunk too was this. He just tried to dunk it off the side of the like it was a pass off the side of the backboard and tried to windmill it and missed like 8 straight times. It was awful. Like you could tell, they showed Shaq at one point. He was just so fed up with it. All the guys judging it were like shaking their heads like it was horrible. I think Dwayne Wade said the dunk contest as a whole like graded a 6. It was terrible. So people have been trying to figure out how to fix the dunk contest. I know you said you didn't see it. If you had any insight, I just thought there were some interesting thoughts I heard over the weekend. Jim Murray on Felger Maz, he said that there needs to be more incentive for players to, bring a betting aspect or have guys go out there. And he brought up an interesting thing saying kind of, I'll dunk you for this. Like he brought up, say Jalen Green went out there and he went up against Obi Toppin and was like, I'll dunk you for this amount of money. And then they went back and forth kind of betting stupid stuff just to maybe incentivize that, get people to watch it. Stephen A. Smith, he had a decent idea on First Take. He, like I said, took the park aspect of it and he said, go to different parks around like the country, make it like a nationwide dunk contest.
Awesome.
It'd be cool, yeah, because he brought up a lot of the points. Like you have a lot of like amateur guys or like obviously guys that want to try to get into the NBA or don't have the skill of like NBA players, but like have athletic ability. So he said go find a bunch of like amateur young kids that NBA players can get behind. So he said keep the NBA player aspect of it. You have the 4 guys, but then they kind of sponsor these kids that end up winning these dunk tournaments and then have them do it. There's a video that describes it way better than I'm trying to paraphrase what Stephen A. Smith said. But like the point is you need to do something to fix this dunk contest. Like I said, I couldn't remember who won last year's. Had to look it up. This year's was the worst in NBA history. Gone are the days of, like you mentioned, the 2016 dunk contest where Levine and Gordon were going back and forth. Like I've sat here since Saturday trying to figure out how to make it more interesting. I think obviously the go-to is like you have to force NBA stars to do it. But like you're not going to get that. Like the LeBron James types aren't going to want to do the dunk contest. Like you're not going to be able to get away unless you like incentivize it. Like Jim Murray said, like maybe you give them more money to do it, or there's a charity tied to it or something. But I don't know how you're going to fix it. Like it's pretty bad, and it seems like it's only going to get worse.
Offer a Bitcoin to the winner. That's what
sure,
everybody loves to say.
offer an NFT
Offer a Bitcoin.
Yeah, offer an NFT that Jalen Green can wear around his neck and, like I said, miss. Like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, dude, I hope you miss your dunks. Like, it's so stupid. Like, and then he proceeded,
Yeah.
like I said, to be the worst one possible, which I found hilarious. But again, like it's I said it that night. I'm like, this is 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour of my life I'm never gonna get back because it was that bad.
It's tough, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't really have a solution on hand. I kind of like the NBA Street type of idea. I think that would be awesome,
Mm-hmm.
personally. But next up on the NBA docket is Zion Williamson trying to get out of New Orleans. What do we think?
I don't know. I mean, again, a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of downtime in the NBA. The games aren't being played right now because it's still technically All Star or just kind of the week, the bye week, if you want to call it, for the NBA. So this was kind of an interesting storyline that came out that, like you said, Zion's trying to, seems like he's trying to force his way off of the Pelicans, which this report, I think we were talking about this earlier in the year, last year, late last year, early last year, where there were, reports that his family was upset about him being in New Orleans and stuff like that. He wanted out, which at that point I said, what are you complaining for? Like, you've been there for a year and a half. You really haven't proven anything yet, so kind of just play basketball. Obviously, now he's hurt this entire year, hasn't played a game yet. So again, I found it interesting this is kind of coming up at this point. Like I said, Zion's been out all year, been dealing with a foot injury. There's been multiple people that have came out and given their opinion on it. I thought JJ Redick had an interesting point that he brought up. He was on First Take talking about how, because he was Zion's teammate a couple years ago with the Pelicans. He basically said that Zion, these reports on him, being a detached teammate or not really being there, because I think the big talking point was when they traded for CJ McCollum at the deadline a couple weeks ago. Zion really never reached out to welcome him to New Orleans, kind of tell him about the team or anything, which people found kind of surprising. But JJ Redick went out and said that that behavior is not something new for Zion. Like he called him a detached teammate, which I found kind of interesting. There's been some other reports that I have in here too, kind of talking about Zion. This was from Bleacher Report's Howard Beck. He said, "quote Team executives are bracing for the next quote unquote disenchanted star to ask out. Can't speak. Speculation focused on Zion Williamson in New Orleans, Damian Lillard in Portland, which we may have thought about, obviously, with how things have gone down in Portland, and Donovan Mitchell in Utah. This was from Matt Barnes. He was on NBA Today talking about Zion. He said, quote, I don't think Zion wants to be there. There's been rumblings, not from him, but from his family from the jump, and it's hard for small market teams to keep their young superstars. Like I said before, I'll say it again. Like, yeah, I agree with the Matt Barnes thing. Like, yes, it is tough for, a team like New Orleans going up against a team like the Knicks to try to get talent in there. That's obvious. Like, you're not going to, it's like to pull from another sport. It's like the Red Sox market going up against the Rays market. It's two totally different things. That being said, I'll say it again. Like, Zion hasn't really proved anything in the NBA, in my opinion, at least. He's been hurt more so than he's been out there. He hasn't played a full season yet. You go back to his rookie year in 2019, he played 24 games. He dealt with a torn meniscus and left knee soreness, so he was out for a couple games there, or a lot of games there, rather. And then just last season, obviously it was a shortened season because of COVID, 71-game season. He played 61 of them. So, a decent upgrade there, decent amount of games played, but was still hurt. Had a couple of thumb injuries throughout the season that had a missed time. There's been numerous. This is what we talked about. There's been numerous reports. I think you brought it up a couple weeks ago when we talked about the NBA. Like, there were reports out there that no one really knew where Zion was when it came to his return to the NBA, what he was doing when it came to his rehab and stuff like that. You mentioned it. There's been talks of him being like 340 pounds, whatever it was. We made jokes about him being in the NFL.
I wonder why he has a foot injury if he's that big.
Maybe. Yeah, it might be the case. But that's been my biggest thing.
Probably dropped a cookie jar on his foot.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
slipped in the kitchen, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you haven't done anything in this league yet.
He's giving it the whole new phone who dis when they text him. Hey, Zion, what's going on? Hey, Zion, they FaceTime him. He picks up and he's got a bowl of ice cream attached to his face. Just licking the bowl. It's pretty crazy because he is very good. But, it's just, I think it's first overall pick entitlement. He's like, I'm in New Orleans. Like,
seems like it, yeah.
Sucks. This market sucks. I don't want to be here. And, like, honestly, playing with CJ McCollum sounds pretty sick. So, like, I don't know why his mind seemingly
hasn't. Not with him anymore.
Yeah, like seemingly doesn't seem to have changed his mind. Maybe they made that trade to hopefully, this is a thing. Maybe this is a thing that's been going around for a while in the Pelican circles. They're like, all right, we want Zion to stay, so why don't we get this awesome player? And it clearly hasn't resonated with Zion. Maybe Zion's like staying up all night playing Xbox and putting on more pounds.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
That's what I mean. It's not like there's
so
like a lack
strange.
of talent with that team, though. I mean, they've
Yeah.
tried to put pieces around him. They still have Brandon Ingram. They had Lonzo Ball. Obviously, he was drafted before Zion was there. He left because maybe it is something with the Pelicans and how the things are run. But like I said, like to me, it's just like if Zion had been playing in the league for 3 or 4 years and things weren't going, it's kind of like an Anthony Davis situation, like where things weren't getting better. And like Anthony Davis, the way he shot himself out of there was wicked immature and stuff like that. But like just for lack of a better comparison, like you know what I'm getting at. If things were 4 or 5 years in and he was doing this, you say, okay, maybe he has a legitimate grab. Like he's been playing at an all-star caliber level. He's been playing like the number one overall pick that he should be playing as. And, you know, he has some legitimate gripes here, but he hasn't done anything. He's played what? 85 combined games over 2 years and hasn't played once yet this season. Like I said, no one really knows when he's coming back, if he's coming back. I saw a great analogy on Twitter the other day. Of course, I can't remember who had it, but they compared him to the Zion and John Morant. Obviously, John Morant being an all-star and how well he's played his first couple of years in the league. Great comparison to back in 2007, the Greg Oden, Kevin Durant stuff. Greg Oden obviously was a consensus number one pick in that league or that year for Portland. He ends up going on to play just 105 games in 3 years due to a bunch of injuries. Missed 4 separate seasons with knee injuries. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant gets taken as the number 2 overall pick, and he's been a superstar, all-star, Hall of Fame caliber player. He's won titles, won MVPs. Obviously, there's still time to figure out what John Morant is and Zion Williamson, but I thought that was a good comparison because it seems like it's kind of headed in the same trajectory. Morant's been an all-star. He won Rookie of the Year. He's been phenomenal, and Zion's kind of not fallen from grace. I feel like that's too early to say that, but like it's heading in that direction. Like you have an all-star worldly talent that goes number one overall. Like he's obviously being linked to LeBron at the time when he was drafted, and you just really haven't been able to see that because of the injury history and stuff like that. And then like when all this crap comes out about him not really being invested, it's like again the sense of entitlement when you haven't really done anything in the league yet is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and I mean, the Grizzlies are getting out of Ja what the Pelicans wanted with Zion, a guy that can
Exactly.
alter the direction of their franchise. That's what John Morant has done. The Grizzlies are one of the best teams in the league. I saw the most recent power rankings too. They're ranked number 2 in the league. Speaking
Yeah,
of
he's
power
been
rankings, the
phenomenal.
Celtics number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean he's altered the trajectory of that team. It's not just him, but he's the number 1 guy on that team. He's one of the better players in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Zion has not been, and this is something that's like that draft, like you're talking about with Oden and Durant now. Maranton and Williamson, it's going to be talked about for a long time. And
Mm-hmm.
if I'm a team training for Zion, I'm not too comfortable either. I'm
No,
going
absolutely
in with
not.
skepticism and hoping to fix things. This is a trade that's going to have to be scouted out a lot before it
Mm-hmm.
happens because no team's going to want to give up huge assets for Zion if they think maybe in a year or less than a year, if he's not happy with it, he's just going to not answer the phone or whatever and get fat and hurt himself or be fat to the point where I think he's possibly hurt because of his weight.
Oh, he has to be. Like
At
we
least
talk
in
about that,
some
like
way.
300. You
It's a
can't be playing
crazy
basketball at
situation.
300 plus pounds. Like
It just doesn't happen.
no.
Maybe
My
in a
big thing.
pickup league,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Maybe in the
not in the
out in the
NBA.
park. But
Like you were the first overall pick, dude. Like
mm-hmm.
have some like increased awareness.
Common
My
sense.
God.
Yeah. But that was
Like
the one other point too I wanted to make. The awareness thing is it's like you like going in to the draft as the number one overall. Like you should know, like you're gonna get drafted to a shit team. Like you're not sitting there with the Lakers who just came off a championship. They're not gonna have the number one. Like you're not going there. You're not going. You had a chance. Obviously, the Knicks lost the lottery. Like you're not going there. You're going to a crap small market franchise. So stick it out the 3 or 4 or 5 years that you're there, whatever your rookie contract is, and then maybe, like I said, in year 4 or 5, when you've done something in the league, then you can maybe have some gripes and say, okay, well now it's not going well. I want out. Like again, though, it's just like you said, this kind of the sense of entitlement. Like number one overall, I should be, doing whatever I want, saying whatever I want, and getting whatever I want. And it's just I just can't wrap my head around why you can't, like, not you obviously, but being Zion, like figure out that maybe you're not going to be in the best situation the first couple of years of your career. You're going to have to duke it out a little bit and fight through it and take those blows, and then things will work out maybe in the end for you. But I
yeah,
just don't get it.
it's nonsense.
Yep.
Our final NBA topic and show topic of the night
Mm-hmm.
centers around LeBron James, who I hate. and there's quite a story brewing with LeBron James and his future.
Mm-hmm.
Should the Celtics draft Bronald to get 1 year of LeBron James because LeBron
Ugh.
wants to play his final season with his son? I will only call him Bronald with that whole thing we talked about a couple weeks ago.
I was gonna say that was a week or two ago. Yep.
It's what he wants to be called. So if anybody's sitting here laughing, he likes being called Bronald. So I'm going to call him Bronald because it is hilarious. Yeah, what's going on with LeBron?
Yeah, I thought. I mean, obviously, with how bad the dunk contest was, the All-Star game was pretty decent. All-Star weekend. This was the biggest story to be coming out of All-Star weekend. LeBron. I don't know what he was asked about. I think he was asked about just the situation in LA, and they've just kind of taken questions during the weekend. Obviously, one of the big storylines he brought up that he wouldn't oppose another return to Cleveland. Which when I heard that, I'm like, all right, like again, like this is LeBron being LeBron. Like give it a rest with I'll go back to Cleveland stuff. The other interesting comment though is what you brought up. He was interviewed by The Athletic. You mentioned it, talking about playing with his son. Bronald, Bronny, whatever you want to call him. The comment from LeBron that was interesting. He said, "quote My last year being in the NBA, my last year will be play with my son. Wherever Bronny is at, that's where I'll be. I'll do whatever it takes to play with my son for 1 year. It's not about the money at that point." Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into that comment. Just diving into it really quick. Bronny, Bronald, whatever. LeBron Jr., mini LeBron. He's currently a junior in high school, won't be eligible for the NBA draft until the 2024 season, according to reports that I've seen, people that I've heard. He profiles as an early second-round pick, possibly
I saw
late-round pick.
2023 today. He could potentially enter the 2023 draft.
Oh, I don't know. I think the rule is he has to play at least 1 year. I think they changed that rule. He has to play at least 1 year in college. That's why 2024 would make the most sense. So I don't know.
Yeah, like I saw something because he's born in a certain year.
Oh, is there a weird loophole around it that goes into it?
I don't know.
That would make more sense.
This says he's eligible in 2024, but I saw something about 2023. But I think 2024 is the actual one. But maybe the 2023 was just speculation, some sort of loophole they could find.
Mm-hmm.
But
2023 is when LeBron's a free agent. That might be. Is that what maybe it was? Because there is a 1 year gap between LeBron being a free agent and Bronny being able to declare for the draft, which is interesting. Is maybe you'd get an extra year of LeBron if you can maybe promise that you're going to try to draft his kid. But again, I think it depends on where Bronny ends up getting drafted. Then LeBron makes his move.
Matt in the comments thinks if Bronald is good enough, draft him. But no, don't draft him just to get LeBron. Just think of the long term. I kind of agree, but if he gets you LeBron James, I think in this case you got to do it because
I think you have to.
James.
Yeah.
I hate LeBron James, but like the Celtics would be kind of crazy if they didn't draft Ronald, to get LeBron James because, I mean, Celtics fans would hate it, but that would be very funny.
It'd be hilarious. It'd be great.
I mean, I do not like LeBron, but like, I would become a LeBron fan if he was on the Celtics, like no doubt.
I think you'd be dumb not to. Like, it's the best player in the NBA.
LeBron James playing with Tatum and Brown would be ridiculous.
It'd be insane. That was kind of like I said, there's a lot of factors that go into it. Just like I was getting to, right now, Bronny profiles as a late second-round pick, early first-round pick if teams want to reach on him. Obviously, there's plenty of time for him to maybe jump up, maybe jump down if, struggles in college, whatnot. Right now, 6'3", 190 pounds is what Bronny levels out at. He's a combo guard, obviously shooting/point guard. The LeBron factor of it, by the time Bronny is eligible for the NBA draft, LeBron will be 39 years old, so that might scare some people away from doing it. Like I said, LeBron's a UFA in 2023. There is some reports he's growing frustrated with the Lakers, so maybe he'll want out of LA, and that'll maybe open the door a little bit more. Yeah, exactly. Shocker. There's, like I said, a lot of factors that go into it, though. You brought up the Tatum and Brown thing. I think it all starts with them. You have to go to them when the time comes and say, do you want to play with LeBron for a year? Do you care if we,
And they're going to say yes.
Yeah, if they say yes, then absolutely. If they say no, like, it doesn't hurt you. If they say no,
they will say yes.
I don't see how you couldn't. Like, just having LeBron on your team, the aura that surrounds him, obviously. Like, we've talked about it before. It's a league. We've joked about it, but it's true. It's a league where you want to go play with your buddies. And we talk about, the GM. LeBron has all the pull when it comes to making roster decisions. Like, having LeBron here might not be the worst thing on the planet. You might be able to get some extra pieces to come with LeBron if, he's here. The second-round draft pick, like, I think you're dumb to not spend this. Like, if Bronny pans out to be a second-round draft pick, that's where he projects to be. Like, who cares? Like the Celtics have had no success. Like I have it here really quick to run down. The second round picks and the late first round picks that they've had. Real quick, 2015 with the 28th pick in the first round, they draft R.J. Hunter, who's not in the league anymore. Round 2, pick 33, Jordan Mickey, not in the league anymore. The 45th pick of the second round, Marcus Thornton, not in the league anymore. You go to 2016, Yabusele at pick 16 in the first round. He's not in the league. Ante Zizic, who didn't play for the Celtics, he was used in the Kyrie trade. Not in the NBA currently. Demetrius Jackson, not in the NBA. Ben Bentel, who I've never heard of, played 3 career games with Dallas in 2017.
Played at Providence.
Did he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay. So there you go. You know something about him. I don't. Yeah, he played 3 career NBA games. There you go. Good for you. Way to do your homework. He was a second round pick. Didn't pan out. Abdel Nader is still in the league. He was a round 2 pick number 58. He's currently he's played with OKC this season. I don't know if he's still currently with them. 2017, they finally strike a little bit of gold with a second round pick. Pick 37, they get Semi Ojeleye. He's currently with the Clippers. The 53rd pick of that draft goes to Kadeem Allen. He's not in the NBA anymore. Pick 56 goes to Jabari Bird. He played 13 career games with the Celtics in 2018. He's not in the NBA. The 27th pick of the first round in 2018 goes to Rob Williams. That one's panned out for you so far. I'll give you that one. 2019, the 22nd pick of the first round, Grant Williams. That one's worked out, but you go to round 2 of that draft, and the 51st pick is Tremont Waters. He's not with the Celtics. He's still currently in the NBA. I think he's done some 10-day contracts with Toronto and Washington. 2020, the 26th pick of the first round goes to Peyton Pritchard. That one's worked out so far. And then you have the 47th pick of that draft goes to Yam Madar or Yam Mater, however you want to say it. He was touted as what, like the Egyptian Steph Curry or something? I think it was what he was. I don't know. We talked about that before. I can't remember what it was. But he's still overseas. He hasn't played a game in the NBA yet. So that you don't really know how that draft pick has worked out yet. And then the 2021 draft, the Celtics had one pick, which I completely forgot they even had. It was the 45th pick of the second round. They get, I think it's Jahan Bergeron.
I think it's Begarin.
Begarin, okay, again, like a guy overseas, haven't heard anything about. So, like, the Celtics have had little to no success when it comes, especially second round picks, but late first rounders, they've had a couple. But yeah, so like you go back and you look at that. I know I threw a lot of names at people. You can go look them up on your own time. Like, how many of those guys? More than half of them aren't even in the NBA anymore. So like,
what's the stat with Rob Williams that came out that he broke an NBA record or something with like some like percentage?
It's like I can't remember. I know what stat you're talking about. I can't remember. He's like the best rated something in the NBA, which is
like 60.3%.
Yeah, I can't remember what. I think it's not defensive rating or something, is it?
February 16th, Rob Williams is leading the NBA in both offensive and defensive rating. There's something about like 60.3% something. I can't find it right now, but Rob Williams is having a wild year.
I know what you're talking about, though. But that's what I mean, just to go off of that point, like, if you don't want to spend a second round, like, I don't know why people wouldn't want to at least try a second round pick on this kid if you can get him when it means a year of LeBron. Like, maybe it won't be, LeBron's dealing with injuries right now. Maybe he breaks down a little bit, but he's not going to be the LeBron of old. Who cares? Maybe you have him come off the bench. I doubt LeBron would take that role. But I feel like it's a chance you have to take. There's really not a ton of negatives that I feel like comes with it, especially like we said, if Brown and Tatum sign off on it is okay. If they don't, then you don't do it. You waste a second round pick on a guy that's not going to play for you or spends 6 years overseas and then gets traded for somebody else. Like, it's not the end of the world if it happens or if it doesn't. I just found it interesting. I've seen a lot of people kind of discussing, if the Celtics have an opportunity to get LeBron James one year, that would you draft his kid, whatnot. So I thought we kind of share our thoughts. I know, plus, like I said, like you mentioned too, you're not a huge LeBron guy to begin with. I just wanted to see if maybe the possibility of him being in a Celtics uniform might change your mind.
Yeah, it would. I mean, I'm not going to lie, it would, because unless he's just cooked, which I really don't see a guy as athletic as him being cooked.
Mm-hmm.
Although he'd be 39 happening. Matt asks, would LeBron like playing in Boston? Would he work with Tatum and Brown? I don't think so.
You don't think it would work out with Tatum and Brown? Or you don't think he'd like playing in Boston?
Said.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what Matt said. If you read the chat.
I just got started now. I had my.
I think he would have to decide if he wants to be here. So, if he signed here, I assume he would think he would like playing in Boston. Mm-hmm. And at that point, like, I don't think he's going to be looking for a grip on the power in his
No,
final
yeah,
season.
yeah.
So he's
That's what I mean.
39.
He
He
said it
literally
too.
just
Like
wants to play with his son. That's all I'll
exactly.
say.
That's how I think you can like. It's obviously how you can get him, but like he's. I read the comment that it's not about the money for him. It's like you just mentioned. Literally, he wants to play 1 year with his son. I doubt he's gonna want to be the focal point. And he said it before too. Whenever the Celtics have played, whatever team he's on, it was Cleveland at the time or with the Lakers. Like he said, he knows Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are like the next up and coming guys. Like he said, I think he went out and said Tatum's gonna be a problem in the NBA for years to come. So he knows what the type of talent that they have. So I don't know if he'd take a back seat to them per se, but like he wouldn't be the ball dominant guy that he's been in his NBA career. Like I feel like more so would be there to obviously help his son along and then give whatever pointers he has to Tatum and Brown and whoever may be there at the time for the Celtics. Which again, I don't think that could hurt. Like you have a mind of his trying to teach Tatum and Brown like winning plays, the winning mentality, stuff like that. That can only help them. Like
Yeah, I'm with you.
wouldn't be the craziest thing they've done. I mean, they have done crazier moves that have blown up in their face, just more recently than not. With the Kyrie stuff, obviously, but like that's a deal. I think it doesn't hurt to do. Like, if anything, it puts asses in the seats. Puts the eyes of people on the Celtics, which isn't a bad thing either. So.
Yep, I'm with you. It sounds so weird to say, but
It
like,
does.
I'm with
It's
you.
gonna be weird too. I mean, we're just completely jumping the shark with stuff like this, and looking way into the future. It's something that might not even happen because, like, again, it's like if you're a crap team, like, and you can spend a high second round pick on Bronny, or maybe you get a late, like I said, first round pick, like then LeBron has to go play for a team like, let's say, like the Timberwolves or something like that. That'd be kind of funny. So it might not even happen depending on where the Celtics are. It'd be interesting to see. I've heard this kind of comment come up is if teams would tank or would purposely try to structure, not tank, but like purposely try to structure themselves in a spot where they can get Bronny in the draft and then obviously have LeBron come along with it. I can't remember who that was. Like my memory's so bad today, but brought up an interesting point that like it's the first time ever in sports you'll see a draft pick attached to like a premier free agent. See if that might have any everlasting effects on how business is done in the NBA or how teams kind of go about doing stuff, which is interesting to see. I'll be very interested to try to figure out if if the Celtics can get him or if just where LeBron might spend his last season in the NBA because of his son.
Yep. But that's our final thought of the show. Final topic. Celtics coming up out of the break have the Nets, the Pistons, the Pacers, and the Hawks. So the Nets are tough, but after that they got some winnable games coming up. See how they come out of the break and see what happens. Going into the future. Because they can continue to move up that Eastern Conference. We'll see if they do it or not. I have faith at this point that they will. Marcus Smart will hopefully stay healthy and they will buzz. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for episode 83 here on a Wednesday night for you. Thank you for listening as always. You can listen to us lots of places. You
Everywhere.
can listen to us here or after or both. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of different platforms like that. You can find our streams if you're watching here for the first time. You can find us through Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube. So check all those out. Follow, turn on notifications if you want to. You can give us a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you wish. We've been getting an amazing amount of listens on our first couple episodes on the new platform. So thank you. Thank you to anyone new. I've been blown away. So that was the goal with the new platform, to reach new audiences that we have
Definitely have
in a massive way. So thank you very much. We hope you continue listening. Hey, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike_Cratty. You can follow Ryan at Ryan_Salvaggio. You can follow the show at Sal and Cratty Pod. Go Salvaggio and Cratty in the search bar on TikTok. You can find us as well. Go check us out there. Until next time, next Wednesday, we'll be in March. That's weird.
that is very strange.
Yeah, we'll see you then. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people. If you're in the New England area, be safe with the snow this Friday. And we'll talk to you next Wednesday. Hopefully with plenty of good things to talk about